This is Radio and TV Aapki Awaaz, and we have contacted to Miss Fawzia Faizi in USA, and she is a niece of the fourth so-called Ahmadi Caliph, Mirza Tahir Ahmad, and he is her maternal uncle. She is also the niece of the Abdul Rahman Khadim, and Muslim perhaps don't know, but our Qadiani friends they know that he was the author of their famous book, Ahmadiyya Pocket Book. He is also her paternal uncle. She is a cousin of present Ahmadi Caliph Mirza Masroor Ahmad. She is also the cousin of the Mirza Masroor Ahmad's wife, Subuhi, Mrs. Subuhi. She is living abroad in USA. Let us meet this brave woman who is fighting against so-called Ahmadiyyat and its leadership. Why? Let us ask her some questions for the sake of the knowledge. Mrs. Fawzia, thank you being with us, and I say Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
It's Radio Aapki Awaaz, and thousands of the people, they are listening and they are looking this TV. Right. So, will you please allow me to put questions directly?
Sure.
My first question is, will you please tell us about your family background?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for allowing me to be on your station and to be able to reach out to as many people as possible to make them aware of this cult. My family background is I come from my mother's side, I come from a Sayyid family. My great-grandfather's name was Dr. Abdul Sattar Shah Sahab, and actually his father is from Kalar Saida and also from Sihala, so Sayyid Bagh Hussain Shah Sahab, who is buried in Sihala, and it is a mazar there. And then Kalar Saida as well, the same thing, it's a mazar, and they have their own following. And my grandfather, Sayyid Waliullah Shah Sahab, his sister Tahira, Tahir, Maryam was her name, but she was referred to as Tahir. Her son, Tahir, Mirza Tahir, who is my mom's first cousin and therefore my uncle. He was also the fourth caliph, as you had stated. My grandfather had 5 brothers and 3 sisters, and they all were part of the Ahmadiyya Jamaat simply because of because their father had converted to Ahmadiyyat. And my father's side is Malak Barkat Ali. He was a landowner in Gujarat, and so there's Khokha Rajput family. And my dad's older brother was Khadim Saab, who was an attorney, and I believe he also represented Mirza Bashir Mahmud in one of the cases that he was charged for, and I'm not really sure what that was about, but I know that he did represent him. So my father, Professor Faizi, who taught at FC College, and was from Gujarat, and my mother's side of the family, as I had stated, was Sayyids, and her father had traveled to Saudi Arabia and to Syria. So my grandmother, my mom's mother, was part Turkish and part Syrian. And I am the daughter of not Mirza, but Sayyid Waliullah Shah. His eldest daughter was Seema. And that's the family background. Now, if you want me to elaborate a little bit more, I can go into more details. My mother has 5 sisters. There are 5 sisters altogether and 2 brothers. And on my father's side, there are 3 sisters and 4 brothers. Yeah, I have to count.
It's lovely. It's lovely. It's lovely that there is no question of caste, and you are Sayyid, you can marry Rajput, Khokar, and like that. But I have got one question is in my mind, if you allow me to put you. Does this Mia family or Mirza Ghulam Muhammad's family, this royal family, marry their daughters out of their caste or family? If you say no, then isn't not racism? What is racism? It is not racism that they don't marry their daughters out of their, family. And this is racism to their Ahmadis also. Is there an example that they have married their daughter out of their family?
Well, there is no example of them marrying, especially the Khandan, because you have to kind of, there's a difference. There's the Khandan, and then there is the members. And I would like to refer to them the Gholami cult, because they are followers of Mirza Ghulam, and therefore, they are Ghulamis. No, there is no such thing about allowing people to marry outside of Ahmadiyyat. So, to think of a woman or a girl from Ahmadiyya Khandan, from the Mirza Khandan, to marry outside is not heard of, not that I'm aware of. Now, if a member of the Gholami cult marries someone that is not an Ahmadi, then the repercussions are quite severe, and by that I mean they are actually excommunicated from the Jamaat, from their cult. They and in a very humiliating manner, and by that I mean a letter is sent out to that particular family, and then there is an announcement made throughout the world that this particular person has been excommunicated, and the local chapter where this person may have been going is pretty much isolated socially and cut off. And if they have any family that is still part of the cult, then they cannot have anything to do with this person who has been excommunicated. I hope I'm making it easier to understand, because it's very confusing for someone that's not been a part of this cult to understand what that means. So also let me know if I've answered your question, and if I haven't, I would definitely want to clarify it.
Thank you very much. It was so nice of you. Would you please tell us about your childhood, your roots, adolescence, education and profession? What are you doing nowadays?
Thank you. I have a master's in social work, and social work, as most people outside of America understands it, it's not that way here. It's a discipline, and you have to have a master's in social work or a bachelor's in social work. It's a discipline. So I have a master's in social work, and my track has been towards working with mental health and substance abuse clients. So I'm a therapist, and I provide individual, marital, family counseling, as well as I work with children and adolescents who are suffering from eating disorders, to ADHD, to panic attacks, to eating, to depression, bipolar, and substance abuse, alcohol abuse, and so on. So that's what I do as a social worker.
Beautiful. I say it's very beautiful. Your job is very beautiful, I mean to say.
Yeah, it is. It's very rewarding, because when you really see a person who comes to you with so many emotional issues, and then you are able to help them get past that and go back to enjoying life and living life and having a more fulfilling life, so to speak, and enjoying family relations and so on and so forth. So it really does make you feel very good, and clients come back and give you that feedback. Thank you so much for helping me through a very difficult time in my life. It does help, and someone like myself who has endured so much abuse growing up as being part of this cult, my family, 4 generations from my mom's side being part of this cult, caused a lot of emotional issues for me, and I had to work through all of them. And so I guess it had put me in a position to where I can help other people. And so, yeah, it is very rewarding. And I'll touch a little bit more about the abuse part, because the abuse is not in the sense that my mother was a bad person. She wasn't. She was a very good person. It was just that being part of this cult and the things that this cult requires from a person is horrific. And she fell in that trap. And there are many who have fallen into that trap, and I feel really bad for all of these people who have fallen in this deceitful trap of the Gholami cult, which obviously is also known as the Ahmadiyya cult. And I refrain myself from using the word Ahmadiyya because Ahmad was associated to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and therefore I would not want to give credibility to Mirza Ghulam by associating that beautiful name to him.
That's very
beautiful. I refer
beautiful.
to him as Ghulam and the Ghulam cult, and I refer anyone that is part of this cult as a Ghulami.
Yeah. Mrs. Fawzia, now I've got one question. Really, I'm not finding any energy or courage to put you this question, but I'm sorry I have to put it because maybe this question will open the eyes of the people who are thinking that this, some you say slavery, Gholami cult, it is very gentle people, they are very nice people, and they have got a high moral and so and so. So it will unveil these people. So will you please let me put you this question? Will you please tell us the ups and downs of your life and also the family dynamic? Who are the best and the worst characters and elements in your life? Who are those worst creatures on the surface of the earth who raped you? Why did they do it? But why? Is there anything that is called conscience? I'm asking this Ahmadi cult. Please.
Right. Okay. So I have to kind of give you a little bit a background to how my parents actually got married. I think that probably should be a good starting point to answer your question, the very last part of your question.
Yeah, sure.
My father had basically given his life up to the cult. In other words, he had made a commitment to serve the cult, and therefore he worked in their college, which was the TIA college, and their salaries were just not that much. Although his father was a landowner and was doing very well financially, but my dad had, serviced himself, and therefore he was not doing that well. And there were other Ahmadi young men who were in the same boat. But at the same time, my father and his brothers had two brothers. The oldest one, which is Malak Khadamur Rahman, my Taya, not him, but from my dad, and then his older brother, Malak Azizur Rahman, and the youngest brother, Malak Ataur Rahman, had started to question this Jamaat, this cult, because they were hearing whispers about the conduct of Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud, who they refer to as Muslim Maud, I believe. He apparently was married, not apparently, but he was married to my Pupi, her maternal aunt, which was Tahir. And she passed away, and we'll touch on that as to what I'm hearing are the causes for her death. But he was very abusive to her, according to my mother, and she would not have made that up because, we often used to look at her aunt's picture, and she looked very sad and very scared woman, and I would ask my mom why she looks too miserable and too sad, and my mom used to tell me that, well, you know, Khalifa, Pupa, she used to call him Pupa. Pupa Jan was very abusive to her. He used to beat her up and slap her and throw her from one side of the room to the other side of the room. And so she said that she just apparently fell to depression and died. But obviously, maybe my mother did not know what the real causes were for her death, or maybe she did and didn't want to talk about it. But Bashiruddin, after her puppy died, her aunt died, this Bashiruddin Mahmud started to go to my mother's house a lot, to my grandparents' house. He was there all the time, running in and out, and finally he proposed for my mother, who was, at the time, 14, she was in her teens. And my grandmother, being a Syrian, a Turkish, she was very upset that he dared to have asked for her hand, and so she said no way. And they said, well, we have another girl in our family, if you have to marry someone from our family, because, you know, there were 4 children that were from this aunt who had passed away. So they wanted someone from Sayyid family to come and actually help out, take care of these children. So he ended up marrying my mom's cousin. Now, getting back to how the marriage came about between my parents, as you recall, I had stated that my father was starting to question the workings of this cult, and so were his 2 other brothers. So Bashiruddin Mahmud called my mom, according to my mother. Now, this is from her. She said that he called for her to come and see him in his office. And she said she went there. She was a young girl. She was afraid, and she sat down, and he said to her, and I'll quote, "The Jamaat is asking for a very big sacrifice from you today. And I hope that you understand that we need you to sacrifice." And obviously, anybody who is from this cult will tell you that they take a pledge of allegiance. So my mother said back to him, "Allahumma labaik." And he said, "Very good. I want you to marry this man, Fazi." And my mom says that she was very upset, but she did not want to say no. And so she came back, and then this proposal started to it became more of a reality, and then she ended up getting married. And the purpose, according to her, was to go in this family and basically, you know, keep an eye on what was going on in there. As I have come to learn about this cult and the workings of this cult, I'm beginning to suspect that it was very intentional that they had put her in this family to marry my father, because there was just they were very different cultures. They came from very different backgrounds, very different cultures, but to create a lot of havoc in this family and to basically cause a lot of destruction. Because as I am starting to look at the events, as I saw them growing up, that's what I saw. It was constant chaos that was coming out from my mom's side towards his family. So that was how the marriage came about, this Bashiruddin Mahmud, who I have come to learn that he sodomized little boys, young boys, and these are accounts from these boys that have written about it on Ahmadi.org. If you go on that website, you will find a lot of personal accounts of people who have talked about things that they saw and things that happened to them. So, and I believe them because no one comes forward about stuff like that. I mean, I'm in this profession, and I deal with people who have suffered sexual abuse, who have suffered rape, and or experienced that. And I know that it is not something you make up. So I believe these people when they have said that, you know, he was known to rape girls, he was known to molest girls, he's known to molest his own daughter,
My God.
his own sons.
Own daughter?
I believe that.
Own daughter?
Yes, his own daughter.
Real daughter? Real daughter?
Real daughter. Yes, sir.
Oh my God, real son, real daughter. Oh my God.
Yeah, so there's, and you know, this is very common among cults. In the cult, if you look at a cult, you will find many examples of where this type of behavior is acceptable, because the person is claiming, I'm a prophet, and he said he was the son of a prophet. So innocent people fall victim to this kind of trap.
Oh my God. And what happened with you, Mrs. Fauzia?
Okay, so in my case, what happened is that, so going back, let me go back, backtrack a little bit. So when my parents got married, when I was born and I started to see, there was constantly, you know, certain family members were not allowed to come to the house because they were not part of the Jamaat of this cult, especially his brothers. She defamed them, and, you know, I'm writing a lot of this stuff in my book that hopefully will get published by next year. But she did not like anybody in his family, really. Nobody. And then, but yet her own family had a very big presence in our home. A huge presence in our home. They were coming regularly, or we were going to Rabwa regularly, and my mother's sisters would come and stay with us for months at a time. And some of these sisters were not married at the time. They were saying, well, they were young, and they would stay with us for quite many, maybe sometimes, you know, 3-4 months. And one of her sisters, who eventually got married to the son of Bashiruddin Mahmud, the guy who wanted to marry my mother, who when she was in her teens. And Bashiruddin Mahmud at the time was in his late 50s or 60s, or late 50s, his son. So you can imagine the status that this sister just had, because she was married to the prophet's son's son, right?
My God.
So she was at her house once, and with her daughter who was sick at the time, and this uncle, her husband, was on a mission to Africa, and she was staying with us, and my grandfather was there as well. And I think that there was something that transpired between my brother and my grandfather. There was some conversation about Ahmadiyya and about the Khalifas and about the commitment to the Jamaat. And my father became real upset about that, because he felt like, you know, he was overstepping his boundaries, and it was not his job, but my father's job to teach his son about spirituality and about morality and about conduct. And maybe my father was more sensitive to that. I'm not sure. But anyways, that night, all of a sudden, I heard this loud noises, arguments, and we were sleeping outside in the lawn. And I obviously got up. I was very young at the time, and I woke up and I saw my father was telling my mother that my aunt and her sick daughter and her parents had to leave the house that night. And I think it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, or 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. And my mother was saying, well, where are they going to go at this time of the night? You know, and he said he didn't care. He just wanted them out because he was tired of them accusing him all the time of things. So it was like, you know, totally destroying my father's peace of mind. Well, they left the next day, and so when this uncle came back from Africa, and my aunt had gone back to Rabwa, I recall a conversation between my aunt and my mother that he's going to pay for this. He will pay for this very dearly. That he has some nerve to tell the son of Muslim Maud's wife and the granddaughter, her daughter, to get out of his house. I mean, how dared he would speak? Because that's one of the things in this cult, is that even a one-day-old baby is not referred by its name, but it's called Mia Saab or Bibi. Yeah. So, okay. So as soon as he got back, it was soon after that, like 9 o'clock at night, a man shows up at our door step who was sent through another friend. And I don't want to go into too many details because I'm writing my book, and I don't want to talk everything about what's going to be in that book, because I do want people to read the book and actually hear more about it. But this servant was actually planted in our home for a specific purpose. And that purpose was to molest me, and I'm not sure if he did with my brother. I'm not sure about that. But I know he molested me.
My God.
For many, many years. And eventually, when I did tell my mom, she basically looked at me and said, you were lying, that I'm lying. And, you know, that's not a good thing to say to someone who has been molested. I mean, it was so purposeful. So it was, you know, it just confirmed. And the more I look at these events and the more I examine it very closely, I see how much it is true that she was particularly picked to be put in this home to destroy this family and destroy this man who had stood up to the cult and the cult leader.
Oh my God.
So, you know, I mean, as you know, fathers take a lot of pride in their daughters, and daughters are the sunshine of their fathers, and fathers are very protective of their little girls, and they hope one day they're going to grow up and they're going to get married and have a very happy, healthy home, and they'll have grandkids and so on and so forth. And so, you know, to do that to a man's daughter, you basically have just killed his soul, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that was just one thing. And then the rape thing is something else. And I really want to not talk about that too much. Like I said, I really want people to read my book when it comes out next year. So if that's okay with you.
So I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. I know it's very sensitive. It was a very sensitive question, but our meanings were that when you are talking about this, then you are unveiling these peoples, because people, they think they are very gentle people and they are very spiritual. And I have read your document in which you have showed this. You have told that this is not a spiritual cult. It is just a commercial company, and you have give the documents how they are taking donation chanda and what are they going to do with this and so on and so on. So would you please tell me about your documents you have prepared with the great efforts? Really, it's very appreciable. Would you please tell a little bit about your documents, some you have issued?
Right. Well, first of all, you know, you have to look at how systematically this cult was created. It was very systematically done. And, you know, I'm starting to believe that the British government or Southern government had a lot to do with the formation of this organization. Because knowing Pakistan, knowing India, they really couldn't have come out with something this well organized as this particular cult is. So I think they had help from somewhere other than their own brains. When this organization was created, there was a CEO who was Mirza Ghulam, and then he had different officers in this organization whose job was to go and get investors. And I particularly hope that all of you Ahmadis who are 2 generations, 4 generations, or especially Ahmadis whose fathers or mothers or families joined this cult during Mirza Ghulam's time, you really need to look at how that came about, because my grandfather's father, the Sayyid Ba Hussain Shah Saab's son, had his own peer with him, and he was a doctor. He was the first one admitted to the medical university in Pakistan. It says Andrews, or I can't think of the name right now, but anyways, it'll come to me. So he was traveling to India. He was just going on a trip. But I think that they, like just now, what they do now is the same thing. So one of his peer apparently must have been paid, had to be paid. So he told my grandfather's father, let's go and listen to this man who's claiming that he is the Messiah. So he went with him. When he went there, the story my mother tells me is that when he walked in, this Mirza Ghulam stood up. As soon as he saw him enter the room, he stood up, and he immediately said to him that don't sit on the floor because that's not your place. You need to come and sit here on this stage where he was sitting, and I'm going to sit by your feet because you are the great son of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, my grandfather's father was really impressed by that, because surely their linkage is from Imam Hussain. He knew that, but he was surprised that this Mirza Ghulam knew that. So he thought, wow, because Mirza Ghulam said to him that he just got a wahi came to him, a revelation came to him as he walked in, that this is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's great grandson. Well, that was all he had to say, and he quickly took his hand and took the oath and joined him. And he turned to his peer and said, go tell my father, Sayyid Ba Hussain Shah Saab, that I have converted to Ahmadiyyat. So the peer goes back and tells his father, and the father says, this is the exact words as it was quoted to me. It is a very sad day for me today because my son has changed his religion. Those were the words that were spoken by Sayyid Ba Hussain Shah Saab when he learned about his son joining Ahmadiyyat. In other words, he knew that Sayyid Ba Hussain Shah Saab knew that this was not Islam. Amazing.
I'm sorry. It is the same thing. It's going in your underconscious that it's not Islam. You have heard your forefathers; they have heard it's not real Islam. Is it?
But you know, at that time, nobody had really said out loud. But he did say that. So I'm coming back to the charity question that you've asked.
Yeah.
So, but you know, my grandfather's father, they were very wealthy people. They had a lot of land. I mean, the whole Sehala, look at the whole Sehala. Look at Kalar Saida. And he himself was a doctor.
It was your
So
land.
one thing that Sayyid Bagh Hussain Shah Sahib did was he put it in his will that nobody from Mirza's family can come and step foot on his land. But anybody that was his from his linkage can definitely come there. Like I could go there. But if I was married to anybody from the Mirza family, he could not step on that land. Because I think he knew, somehow he must have known that this was, they were going to come after this land. You know, it was a money-grabbing thing. So to go talk about charity, so, you know, they started aiming and sending out these people to get investors. They got Shahnawaz family, they got Chaudhry Zafrullah Khan. You know, they got very wealthy people initially were the ones who signed up and invested in this.
They got you mean they got wealthy people around them to get this money, is it?
Yes. So the charities, like, you know, and I'm going to step many decades further, I'm going to fast forward. So they collect a lot of money. But the funny thing is, and I can speak to this because this is something I encountered myself. If an Ahmadi or a Gholami loses their job or they're having financial hardship, the charities that are collected are not spent on their members living in the United States that I could speak of. But they will send it to Rabwa, whereas these people will go to the local churches, to urban ministries, to United Ways, to get food, to get financial help, to pay their light bills and stuff like that. And so my question has been...
They are saving their money. They are saving their money, is it?
Where's the... Yeah. I mean, you're collecting these charities.
And you are not spending on... This is your meaning. You are not spending on these.
No, they're not spending it on their members.
Okay.
They are getting their members to go to the churches.
Mrs. Fawzia, one very interesting question came in mind. You told me once that when Bhutto has declared them as infidel, non-Muslims, so they were very happy, and it was very surprising news for me that how you have told the story of Mirza Hanif and so on. So how can they be happy when they have declared as non-Muslims?
Well, you know, I mean, that was the plan. I mean, it was the plan because look at how many Ghulamis have come to Canada, to Germany, to England, to America, and now the money is coming in dollars.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. You told me once that Mirza Hanif has said that now we will earn pounds.
Yes. That's true. That's true. He said that to my mother.
Okay.
It was a conversation that happened between him and my mom because, you know, before Bhutto, if anybody knows any history of Pakistan, and I was a very young girl, but I'm now doing a lot of research, and most of the positions were held by Ahmadis. Isn't that amazing? I mean, isn't that an eye-opener to kind of, wow, how did this cult become so successful in such a short time to when Pakistan was created, yet they did not want Pakistan to be created. They wanted their own land, their own country. But Pakistan,
it is also,
in a way,
sorry,
Mr.
Fawzia, sorry, I'm interrupting you. I beg apologize. It is coming from Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. He was not patriot. You know it. He was not patriot. So it is coming from the Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani. So I have got one last question for you. I don't want to waste your so many time. And if you say humbly yes, if you know, because you are not witness. I have heard the interview of ex-Ahmadi Rafiq Ahmad Akhtar, who is columnist, and I have heard myself from Sheikh Rail from Germany, and he has also written 3 letters to the present Caliph. And third letter, he describes that this Mirza Masroor Ahmad, he is gay. Do you know something about it?
I have heard the same thing, but that's not anything uncommon in Rabwa. I mean, being gay in Rabwa with, they are actually bisexuals, as we know it. But yeah, there's that's common knowledge. I mean, I'm not throwing out a big revelation or an aha moment. I mean, that's been out there. So many people that I know who have been bisexual. I mean, some of my cousins have actually talked to me about so-and-so they had seen so-and-so with so-and-so, and there were stories about Mirza Masroor as well, that he, was...
they were bisexual. You mean heterosexual and homosexual?
Bisexual means that they go both ways. They men and they like women.
Mrs. Fauzia, would you please give us a message to these people, thousands of the people who are listening you and who will listen also your video? What is your message to the Ahmadis, and what is your I'm sorry I'm saying Ahmadis, you say I should not say it, they are ghulam, they are slaves. So what is your message to these slaves of a slave, and what is your message for the Muslims? What can I do in future?
Well, I think that it's very important to have as many interviews as possible to make people aware of what this cult is about, how the members are treated within this cult, how they are collecting charities or money and using it for their own benefit back in Rabwa and even in other countries where they are living. And and if you know of a ghulami, pay close attention. Don't go by this facade that they put on about being soft-spoken and being very nice. Behind that is a very ugly face. And you get to see that ugly face as soon as you start to question their ideology, as soon as you start to question their conduct with other people. It may not be like that with you, but if it is with someone else, point it out to them, and you will very quickly find out what they are about. And so my message to everyone out there is, even to the ghulamis, that you are not practicing Islam. You are absolutely not getting spiritually connected to God, because your God is the Khalifa. Because whatever he says goes, and not what the Prophet Muhammad said goes, or what Allah said goes. I mean, reading the Quran and saying 5 prayers a day is not Islam. Islam is a lot more than that. This is part of Islam, but it is not all of Islam. So I would like for people to really take a good look within themselves and do some self, soul searching, and come to some kind of, and do some research. Look at go to Ahmadi.org, go to Quran, go to your website, do some research and read the testimonies of so many people who have been a part of this occult. And I want to make one comment. I was on your website and I read the testimony by Mr. Munir from Germany. And it was amazing when he was talking about his dream in which he saw Mahmud Tahiri. And it was interesting that he saw Imam Hussein, because Mahmud Tahiri is the direct descendant of Imam Hussein, and so am I. So it was amazing when I read that testimony by him and why he left the cult. And so I think you guys need to continue this good work. I think you're doing a great job in bringing awareness around the world, and I am so grateful to you for allowing me this time to talk about my story, and I hope that it helps people out there. That is the whole purpose of this, is to help you guys come to some realization of where you are in your life and with whom you are associating, and whether it is increasing in your well-being, in your spiritual growth, and if not, then you're not in the right place.
Very much, Mr. Fauzia, being with us. And when to our listeners and viewers, when Mrs. Fauzia Faizi says Mamu Tahri, it means the fourth Caliph, Mirza Tahir Ahmad. Thank you very much. Have a nice time. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz.